same place, different time. Some of the same feelings. The constancy in those feelings is that as I do this each day and try to make some kind of sense of the last part of my life, make some sort of contribution maybe that would help me fulfill my purpose on this earth, that of helping my family and being a provider and guiding them and helping them to understand what will make them happy and what won't. And one of these days, I guess, we won't get dwelling on it too much because it's kind of negative if we do, but then one of these days I'll die, and who knows, maybe that's all you'll be left with is a few things that I've said and some feelings that I've expressed. Tonight's a special night. Let me explain why. It's Christmas Eve. It's actually quite late on Christmas Eve. And my wife tonight said, let's leave the lights on all night tonight, meaning the outdoor lights. We have some bushes that are lit up and some decorations on the porch and a little tree down by the mailbox that we run electricity down to that we light up for those that come and go. She said, let's leave them on tonight. That statement that she made, that request is, and I told her I'd honor that again because we've done it other years and kind of been a tradition in our family to leave some lights on all night on Christmas Eve. Anyway, it's got me thinking, and at this stage in my life, I do a lot of reflecting this time of year. As I look back over my life on Christmas Eve, a lot of those nights I was thinking, oh no, how am I going to put this together or that together? And will I have time? And we're hustling and bustling. And in our family, we did a nativity. Sometimes it was down the basement at our house, and I was usually the donkey. So those of you that were there and remember, I was usually the donkey. That's a fitting part for me, isn't it? The donkey. But I'd put socks on my ears, get down on my hands and knees, and one of the kids or grandkids, as the case may be, now it's great grandkids, would hop up on my back, and at the cue of whoever was directing, we'd come into the room, and there would be Mary and Joseph and some sort of a makeshift manger. There was a time in our lives up at Lake Town where we had actually kind of a real manger. We would have a backdrop of hay and straw or whatever the case may be, and when Mary would bring Joseph into town to find a room, he would knock on the granary door and then go over to the door of the chicken coop and knock. And anyway, it was almost like a live nativity that we'd put on, and we'd make a fire. We'd build a fire with some old wood. We did it there in the barnyard where Lorraine's parents lived, and they'd come out, and relatives of, mostly from Lorraine's family, her brother and sister, and whoever would be interested. Some of the neighbors sometimes would come over once they found out what we were doing on Christmas Eve because they seemed to enjoy it. So tonight's is a reflective night for me. And as I reflect, I think back to some of the descriptions that my parents would give me, especially my mother, My mother was special. She taught me right from wrong in a kind of a special way. And I could feel her concern and her love, and she had some wisdom, and I felt that too, and have appreciated it more through the years. She came from a family of, well, their entire family was, if I remember right, was 21. That included her father, his wife, a stepwife, eventually, 3 stepchildren of stepbrothers and sisters of my mother, and I think 15 siblings. 3 sets of twins, if you can imagine. 3 sets of twins. My mother would describe Christmas Eve at her house. She said, we've gotten into a situation. It's been interesting to watch. My mother described a situation where they would take a rope and tie it from a doorknob on one corner of the living room over to another corner doorknob. And then there would be some safety pins or whatever attaching the socks onto that rope. And in my mind's eye, I'm trying to picture a rope with 16 socks on it. I think some of those babies passed away early on in their lives, so probably wasn't quite like that. But I tried to imagine what that might look like. And by the way, they weren't the kind of socks that you see in the stores these days or that we've had recently. It's not so much been ours. Some of our kids have bought some for us. Holy cow. You could put everything we used to get for Christmas in a sock. And my mother's family, they just go get a sock out of their drawer, one of their regular socks, and attach it to the rope. And I think they used to get things like oranges and apples, and maybe some hardtack candy or those kinds of things in their sock. And when we started out in our family, my parents, that's kind of the way we were. We'd get our sock, we wouldn't attach them to a rope, but we'd fasten them to one corner of the couch or the other side of the couch. And that'd kind of be our spot for when Santa came. Anyway, so through the years, that's the way it's been. And the one other thing I remember about Christmas Eve is my wife always kind of worrying about how the kids would feel in the morning. If they compared, I would see her thinking, well, so-and-so might not feel quite as good as so-and-so. And so she'd slide something over from one to the other and try to equal it out as best she could, whatever the Spirit was telling her to do. And I thought that was commendable of her, and it's kind of representative of her life. She's wanted her family to have good feelings, especially on such an important day as Christmas. And my father never talked much about his Christmases. I don't know much about those, but he had 12 siblings, 12 siblings in the family. I should say that included him. So I had lots of aunts and uncles and a whole bunch of cousins, most of which I never got to know. I knew of them and would follow them through some of their trials and some of their accomplishments. And, when you get that big of a family, why, there's a lot of posterity. I think if I remember correctly, when my grandmother and grandfather had their 50th wedding celebration over in Paris, we went inside the Emerson Elementary School, if I remember, to have that celebration, and they took a group picture up on the stage, and it was a whole lot of posterity there. I think somebody said over 100 that had come from the union of my grandmother, Nina Louise Passy, and my dad, or my grandfather, Arthur Phipp Eborn was his name. My middle name is the same as his first name, Arthur. Anyway, it's been something that has fascinated me through the years, as I've not only heard what my parents had to say and the way they talked of Christmas and how we experienced it at our house on the dairy farm, and then observed it with my wife and I, more than observed, participated in. We're the main actors in lots of cases. A donkey can be a main actor, you know. Well, anyway, I was a donkey, and it was enjoyable. We built a lot of good memories. I think all of our children will attest to those good memories. There was kind of how would I describe it? Kind of a hole in their hearts, I guess, when I sold the house in Lake Town where most of those memories were made. And I'll never forget, I had to get ready for those who were going to buy it, and I took a load to the county dump pile. When I came back, my children, with the exception of our youngest child, I don't think was there, but something happened to me right then that brought a lot of things to light and kind of came home to me, and that is, when I came back, one of our children, our second daughter, Robin, I think it was, made the request. It wasn't anything I initiated, but somehow them talking and maybe reminiscing while I had gone to the dump with my son-in-law, and we came back, they said, "Dad, we'd like to have a family prayer." Will you have a family prayer with us? And we had a family prayer. And the very essence of that prayer was gratitude. Gratitude for all the memories, for the life lessons, for the ups, for the downs, for the disappointments, for the jubilations, for the accomplishments, tears and laughter. They all occurred there in that house. There's a poem somewhere, I think I can't remember. It might be Edgar A. Guest that had the poem, but part of the words of that poem said, "It takes a heap of living in a house to make it home." That's how it starts out, I believe. It takes a heap of living in a house to make it home. Well, to those that were there and wanted to stand in a circle and offer a prayer, they could feel that heap of living, and they were grateful, and I could feel it. It was a very humbling, a very singular, humbling experience for me, and still is when I reflect back on it. Anyway, take a deep breath and try to collect myself even thinking about it. But back to Christmas. The things that we did, and then the things that we see our children do with their own families, and now our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren have come into the picture. 6 great-grandchildren now. And those numbers will increase even after I'm dead and gone, and hopefully be influenced by something that might have been said here, or at least taught by somebody else that was learned in their childhood and experienced, and something they wanted to pass on. But as I turned those lights, or told my wife that I'd leave those lights on tonight, I couldn't help but think of the very word Christmas. I've been told, I've researched it a little bit, and it's not quite the way I was told, but I've been told that in the Spanish language, Christ, or Christmas means Christ more. Mas is one of the ways they say more. And I've liked that. I've liked that because it seemed to fit at Christmas time. It is a time of Christ more. I couldn't help but reflect on that as even right now, the lights are shining outside, and they will shine all night long tonight, as our way of saying we also would like to participate in Christ more celebration. It's interesting how it has come at the darkest, one of the darkest times of the year, and the lights of Christmas cheer me up, especially when I think of what they represent, where the source of that light actually comes from. Christ more, even in the darkest times of the year, even in the darkest season of our lives, we reach out for Christmas, Christ more. And the light comes into our life. It boosts our spirits, helps us to get on our feet again, sometimes when we would be gloomy or down. And it's easy to get that way at Christmas time. At Christmas time, there's more suicides, and you hear about a lot of crime, difficulty going on in the world. It seems like at Christmas time, and it doesn't seem to fit, because there should be Christ more, not Christ less. So you do what you can to try to make there be more instead of less. And I'm not going to elaborate on things that I do, because to some listening, it might seem like I'm just trying to toot my own horn a little too much. But I can say that I do make an effort. And I know there are those in our family, that our children, that they all try to make an effort more at Christmas time. And it changes through the years as to what you actually do for there to be more Christ more in this season. It changes as we go through our life cycles, from being a child, a young child, to a little kid growing up, to a teenager, to a young adult, then into adulthood, then into married life, and then into all of the cycle that starts over again with your own family. And each cycle, I have noticed, changes a little bit. And that's what concerns me a little bit, because even though the packages and the bows and the socks and the gifts get more costly and more extravagant, to me seemingly less useful and needful in their purpose, I wonder if we're getting Christ more or Christ less. Let me tell you about a gift that when I say useful, it reminds me of one of the gifts that I gave my father as I think I was about maybe 13, 14 years old. My mother would try to guide me into giving gifts that were useful, not just something that we would spend money on, and 2 weeks later we'd have nothing to show for it. And I wanted to get something nice for my dad, and I mentioned it to her. She never did say, well, let's get this or let's get that. She would always put it back on me and say, what do you think he would like? Is there something you can think of that he would need? She would put that statement in there so that I could kind of stay focused on something that would have some utility to it, and actually maybe even replace something or replace something they might have to buy later anyway. That's the way we conserved. That's the way we made the money stretch. And the gift that I selected for him, and I think part of the reason I can remember it is because my mother praised me for it, and my father did when he got the gift. The gift was a log chain. Now, some of you that haven't been around on the farm and understood the need for log chains wouldn't understand that, but they were a very useful gift. They drug things, they held things together, they helped pull things, and there was very little that would replace them, especially when you have a tractor on the other end of whatever you were pulling, and it was heavy. You couldn't have something flimsy that would break or was useless and dangerous too. So it was a pretty hefty log chain that I bought him, and like I said, my mother praised me for buying such a useful, needful gift for my dad. And I can remember, like I said, when my dad opened it, and I don't know whether my mother had primed him to react the way he did or not, but anyway, he reacted in a way that warmed my heart, made me feel like the money that I'd saved for that gift was very well spent. And so I've always remembered the log chain gift. And you can remember certain gifts that you have got and received and that you got for other people that were more meaningful than others. I received my birthday is in December, first part of the month. And it came about 2 weeks late, but one of my grandsons came to me and he didn't say much. He just handed me an envelope. And he said, "Happy birthday." Well, I knew my birthday had come and gone. He hadn't given me anything on my birthday, but I put it in my pocket. The setting that we're in, I just gave him a pat on the back and said, "Thank you. I'll look at this when I get home." Well, when I got home, I pulled it out of my pocket and I read it. What he had given me was a piece of paper, standard size, 8.5 by 11 paper, lined, and he had written in very nice handwriting on both sides of the page, 2 full pages of words telling me how he appreciated me. He listed some things that I had taught him and done for him, specific kinds of things, very authentic in the way he presented his thoughts in writing. And as I read that letter, my heart just warmed. I was so taken aback, I guess. The tears started to well up in my eyes. I had to do like I've done here a time or two and reach up and kind of peel a tear out of my eye so I could keep going. But I told my wife later, I said, I don't know when I've ever received a birthday gift that has ever been more meaningful than that. I received some good birthday gifts. I don't mean to diminish the others, because there have been others that have done similar kinds of things, but certainly there's none that have been any more meaningful than that double-sided piece of paper with his sincere, appreciative thoughts. And it definitely warmed my heart, and still does when I think on it. I'm going to save it and treasure it, reread it when I need to, and when I get down on myself a little bit. We all need that, don't we? We all need a little bit of a boost. I'm not saying I deserved all these words, but still they did some good. And I hope the gifts that I've given through the years at Christmas time have done some good. I know there are some that have probably, for lack of a better term, we like to use the word spoiled whoever we gave them to, because sometimes we go to excess. At Christmas time, I remember my father telling a story about one of his brother's children. And he tells this story, and I'm trying to remember. I start thinking, why would he tell the story? Because I heard it 2 or 3 times. In fact, sometimes I think we heard it every year for Christmas for a few years. But you decide why you would tell it. But the story was of this uncle of mine that had 3 boys. And again, it's a story, so who knows how much of it's actually true. But he said that his brother told him that he woke up on Christmas morning and the boys came down the stairs excited to see what they got for Christmas. And they stopped and looked around. And they said, well, if that's all we're getting for Christmas, we're just going to go back up and go to bed. And that's the end of the story. That's the end of the story, except for the feeling that I had and for the thought that I had as to why my dad would tell that story. And I think the reason he told that story, the message coming from him, even though he didn't say it, as he told that story, is that we should be grateful for what we have. That we shouldn't turn our noses up at somebody's best effort, including my mother's and father's, in providing Christmas. And I got that message. I knew that I should be grateful. I felt, too, as time went on, even more so now, that I should be grateful. Gifts don't mean much. Under the tree type gifts don't mean much to me anymore. The kind of gifts to me are kindnesses and considerations and thoughtfulness. Shows of support, lending a hand, helping siblings that are in need. It's one of the warmest things that I felt as a parent, when you can see your own children helping your other children and reaching out. It's one of the warmest feelings that you can have as a parent, because what it tells me is you succeeded. You taught them what was important. They got the message and they're acting on it. Those are the kinds of gifts that are most meaningful. Apologies, the avoidance of bad feelings and contention, bitterness, animosity, contempt, and all of the other emotions that those things lead to. Disgust, hatred, heaven forbid. No parent wants to see that. No parent wants to see those eruptions of animosity and contempt amongst their siblings or anyone for that matter. It's not why we're here. Well, Christ more. It's a great season of the year. And if we really want Christ more, we don't have to have that season fall on one day of a 365 calendar day year. We can have that Christ more day fall on all 365 of those days. And it'll boost our spirits if it's done properly, if it's on our mind, if it's a focal point, kind of like the lights that we left on all night tonight. We let our own personal light shine nonstop. And that's the symbolism, at least part of the symbolism in the Christmas season, that should go beyond what we term, or what we would call, the season of Christmas. So that's my goal. And it's my goal for any of those that I can reach out to and help to understand that there's a purpose in the season, because it helps. It should, anyway, if it's done properly, it should help us become a little more acquainted with kindness and Christ-like love to everybody. And wouldn't that be great if it never left us? It's my prayer that it won't. It's my prayer for me. It's my prayer for you. And it's my prayer for anybody that you can touch and teach along those lines. So I'm going to go in and get ready to go to bed now. It's late. Christmas Eve is well underway. And I hope I can sleep. But if I can't, I hope I think about some of these very thoughts that have helped me say what I said to you tonight. And I hope you can think on it too. Not just tonight, but perhaps throughout the years through these YouTube uploads. Good night. I love you all. Merry Christmas. Merry Christ more.